안녕하십니까. 닥터 스팁 이지 핸즈온.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Kim Kyung-won of Dr. Step Easy Hands-On. This is the first class of 2021. This year also, OSTEM's various surgical kits will be looked at along with hands-on practice. Like last year, I hope you continue to have interest and join us on the series. I wish you the best. First class is about GBR. The GBR Kit. It has multiple tools for proceeding GBR. There's a bone tack for fixing membrane. You connect the bone screw, and there's also a tool to eject bone tacks with. Also, there's auto bone collector. Let's look at characteristics of bone tack first. This has a reverse thread design, and because of its design, you can easily do bone tack nailing. Bone tack does not come out easily, so you can prevent the membrane from moving. There's also a holder for bone tack. It's very ergonomic, so it's very easy to use it. In fixating the bone tack, you can firmly do it and do it very easily. When you remove bone tacks, use this kind of lever action to remove it easily, and there's a tool for that. Next is bone screw and auto bone collector. The design of the bone screw has very good self-tapping competency. So it has an apical design on the tip of the screw. For 1.2 and 1.4, it has a very sharp apex, so you can place it without drilling. And for 2.0, you can just place it, or you can at times do drilling just once. It has a self-tapping capability and has a very good structure. And when you place a bone screw, the driver, you can use universal handle, and you can place it on hand driver or on the handpiece, so you can use the engine as well. There are two types. For auto bone collector, you can get bone chips from donor's site, and you can do it safely. So you can go in 4 millimeters and get bone chips very easily. Next is about components of GBR Kit. In the GBR Kit, there is a tool for bone tack and another one for bone screw. And for auto bone collector, there are 3 in total. First, let's look at the bone tack. So the bone tack is used for fixating non-resorbable membranes, and that's a screw for that. And at times, you can fixate resorbable membranes as well. As mentioned earlier, because of the design, you can just install it without drilling, and you can just do melting, and the length is 3 millimeters. The bone tack, as mentioned earlier, has reverse thread design, and it offers very firm fixation. When you do GBR, and if there is inclination in the alveolar bone, you'd be able to place it well without misorientation. So the bone tack, once attached, it does not get loose very easily. It prevents membrane movement, and you'll be able to gain the GBR result that you want. That is the design for this bone tack. Next is bone tack holder. It's ergonomically designed, so it's very easy to handle, and the grip is very stable and firm. The handle itself does not rotate. That is the design. Applying this is very easy. When bone tack is mounted, when you vertically engage it, it's very easy to mount it. So regardless of the position, it's very easy to position the bone tack, and it's a very useful tool. Sometimes when bone tack is fixated and when you remove it, when there is no space between the bone and the bone tack, it can be difficult to remove, so you can use bone tack ejector to do this. You'll be able to remove bone tack whenever wherever easily. If there's no gap in the bone tack, and you can use 0.9 hexa driver to twist it slightly to remove it. Create gap first and then remove it, and you'll be able to easily use bone tack ejector. Next is bone screw. Bone screw is for fixating non-resorbable membrane, and you can also use it for titanium mesh. Another point is when you get block bone from Autobone, you can use it for fixating this. The apex design of the bone screw is designed so that the self-tapping capability is very good, and you can usually use it. The length diameter is 1.2 and 1.4. It has a sharp apex, so you can use it without special drilling. There's also bone screw with 2.0 diameter. At times, in the case of maxilla, you can do it without drilling, but in the hard area of mandible, for drilling, you can use 1.3 drill and then place it easily. In those cases, when you do block bone graft, I think it'll be easier if you drill first. As mentioned earlier, bone screw, there are two types, 1.2 and 1.4. It has apex design, and self-tapping capability is very good, so you can use it without drilling. It is designed that way, and it has resilience against a fracture or bending. You can use it for fixating titanium mesh or non-resorbable membranes. The screws dimension, as mentioned earlier, for 1.2, the length is 345, and for diameter 1.4, the length is 468. Bone screw 2.0 millimeter screw. This is for fixating block bone. It's very useful for that. Especially in the mandible, you can drill 1.3 diameter first and then fixate it, and it's very easy to use. The length itself is 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16 millimeters. So it's very useful when you do block bone graft, and it's very good for fixating the block bone. This is 1.3 millimeter drill for bone screw. When you use 2.0 bone screw, if necessary, in the case of the hard bone in the mandible, in those recipient sites, you can do drilling using 1.3 millimeter drill and then anchor the bone screw. Tip of bone screwdriver is shaped like crosshead driver, and you can vertically mount it. Basically, you can attach it to universal handle and attach it to bone screw. As mentioned earlier, the screw can be attached using the handle. Using your finger, pull it and attach it. Then you can easily connect it. This is the bone screw driver for engine. On handpiece engine on the right, you can connect it, and like a drill, you can use it. So you can use it for contra angle handpiece for attaching bone screw. Next is auto bone collector. Easily put, the chip of autogenous bone, you can use it to collect it, and it's very easy to use. From the donor side in the patient's mouth, you can get it wherever, and for anatomic structural safety, you can go in maximum 4 millimeter depths. You'll be able to harvest bone more safely. The diameter, basically, is 4.0, and optionally there's 3.0, 5.0, and 6.0, so you can use it for gathering auto bone, and the RPM recommended is approximately 300 to 600 RPM. Next is easy hands-on. Today's hands-on practice is doing GBR on upper anterior. Implant will be placed, and resorbable and non-resorbable membrane will be attached using bone tack and bone screw. After that, using the ejector to remove bone tack easily, I'm going to show you how to do it. Next, the block bone is going to be fixated using bone screw. So these are the hands-on procedures. There is a missing area in upper anterior. Implant will be placed. GBR will be conducted. And the membrane for GBR will be attached using bone tack or bone screw. After that, bone tack or bone screw will be removed. I'm going to show you how to do it. Next is on mandibular ramus, block bone will be harvested, and the block bone is going to applied to the atrophied alveolar bone, and bone screw will be used to attach the bone graft. So I'll show you briefly at hands-on practice. Now I'm going to do hands-on practice using GBR Kit. The hands-on practice is going to be about upper anterior. On the missing area, TS3 implant is going to be placed, and on the Hiossen's defect, GBR is going to be conducted, membrane is going to be applied, and bone screw and bone tack is going to be used for fixation. The membrane that I'm going to use is Osmem Hard, and this is going to be released soon. It is a collagen membrane. There are two types. There is a more hard type and soft type. So I'm going to use Osmem Hard, which is going to be resorbed slowly. I'm going to use bone tack and bone screw to fixate it. Number 11 is missing. In this case, implant will be first placed. On crestal, slightly towards the palatal, crestal incision is going to be made. On both sides, vertical incision is going to be made. Flap is going to be reflected. For hands-on, self-retraction suture is going to be made. On the number 11, on missing area, you can see that alveolar ridge is atrophied, and TS3 4.0 by 11.5 implant is going to be first placed. It has been placed. Now I'm going to prepare GBR. First, I'm going to open the membrane and cut it. After that, I'm going to do GBR. The membrane that has been prepared is Osmem Membrane Hard. So this is going to be released by Ostem soon. So it's going to be in the first half of the year. This is a bovine collagen membrane from Ostem. The hard version resorbs more slowly, and for soft, it resorbs more quickly. There are two types of collagen membrane that are about to be released. So Osmem hard membrane, which is harder and more closer to non-resorbable, will be used for hands-on. I'm going to remove the packaging. Once you get it out, as you can see, there's a sticker about the specification about the membrane, and this is the packaging. Osmem hard, and the size is 20 by 30 millimeter. The thickness is 0.35 millimeters. It is a collagen membrane. It's kind of hard. This is the product. This is a collagen membrane, but it has been compressed. So this resembles a non-resorbable membrane. There is no difference between front and back. This is osmium hard. I'm going to put it on the defect, and I'm going to adjust the membrane size, and then proceed. Accordingly to the defect size, I'm going to adjust the membrane and conduct the graft. You'll be able to do GBR more easily. So this side is going to like this, and the palatal side, you can put it on like this. That is the design. So on top of the implanted fixture, where there's the Hiossen's defect, bone graft will be done. As for graft material, in my case, in these cases, where the fixture is in contact, I use allogenic bone and I use bovine bone for space maintenance. Layer or sandwich graft is done. So this is for hands-on, so I'm going to use graft material for that. So there's a membrane that I've cut earlier. I'm going to hydrate it using the saline. Compared with the existing collagen membrane, even when you hydrate it, the shape is somewhat more well maintained. Using this, as shown, adaptation is done. Using bone tack, as you can see, the GBR kit, on the top there's bone screw and bone tack, and on the bottom I'm going to remove the holder there. It has been designed ergonomically so you can easily use it and handle it. Holding the holder, the bone tack will be connected vertically. You can see that it's connected. So in the area for application, I'm going to put it here. Using mallet, I'm going to place it. Now it's connected. It's complete. On the other side, I'm going to use bone screw for fixation. On the bottom of the GBR kit, I'm going to take out the universal handle. And the bone screw, there's a tip for handle. Like this, I'm going to press the back and connect it. Now it's mounted like this. If you look, the tip, it is crosshead driver. It is like that, so it's sharp. And bone screw, the diameter is 1.4 by 4 millimeter bone screw. Because there is a crosshead, you can hold it like this. Vertically, you can connect it as shown. Without drilling, position it, hold it, and twist it. It has excellent self-tapping capability, so in the case of maxilla, you don't need to do drilling at all. And bone screw 4 millimeter has been fixated like this. Now I'm going to show you how it's removed. After suture, after GBR, the membrane that is used is resorbable membrane, so you don't need to remove it. But you can remove this bone screw using the driver. use a driver like this, twist it to remove the screw. As for a bone tack ejector, as you can see, it's fully mounted and then there's no gap. Using 0.9 hex driver, and there's a crosshead on the bone tack, so you can twist it to create gap like this. Now connect bone tack ejector. To remove it, it's very easy. Mandible alveolar bone, there's a defect there, so I'm going to show you how bone graft is done. The model, this is not the ramus, but on the edentulous area, we're going to assume that it's a ramus, and I'm going to design the block bone shape and get the block bone. We're going to assume it's retromolar pad. When we harvest block bone, cortical bone needs to be pushed through and you need to drill up to medulla portion. The cortical bone, you need to push it and you need to get the medulla portion and get the block bone. This is how you harvest it. Block bone has been harvested. So you have harvested. I'm going to use auto bone collector to get some bone chips. You connect the auto bone collector and the metal sleeve. If you put it to the front like this, the metal sleeve is to the front and it gets connected. On the tip, you can see that there's just a tip and you can get auto bone. It goes in and within the metal sleeve, bone chip gets gathered. As shown, the metal sleeve is pulled to the front and you're going to put it like this. As shown, inside the metal sleeve, there's bone chip. You can see it with your eyes. I'm going to remove the metal sleeve and bone chip can be gained. I'm going to talk about the ejector for these bone chips on the next lecture as we talk about GBR Kit. The harvested auto bone, we're going to adapt it to the recipient site. You can check like this, position it, and then do drilling. Block bone, when you use it, you create holes ahead. The holes, as you can see on the GBR kit, 1.3 millimeter drill will be used. Hole is created. Diameter 2 by 8 millimeter bone screw has been prepared. Use universal handle and remove the screw. Take it out and on the bone we're going to create holes. Connect it so that the tip is barely showing. So on the recipient side, I'm going to create a hole. As you can see, a hole has been created. This is the cortical bone. So for blood supply, you do cortical perforation. As shown, perforation has been done. So block bone is going to be placed on the area that has just been prepared. As shown, using bone screw, auto block bone has been accurately positioned. I have used bone screw to do block bone graft. Let's look at the questions. The first question, when you fixate membrane, what kind of criteria do you use for selecting bone tack or bone screw? When we use non-resorbable membrane, when we fixate it, you use bone tack most frequently. As mentioned earlier, bone tack, you can just do melting. If the length of bone tack is 3 millimeter, at times bone tack can be too short to fixate it properly. In those cases, you can use short bone screw. And in general, when you do GBR, when you fixate membrane, bone tack should be sufficient. If you don't have bone tack, or if bone tack is too short to fixate properly, you can use bone screw. I hope this answered your question. Next question is, which do you prefer, non-resorbable membrane or resorbable membrane? Actually, in the past, when we do GBR, we used to choose the best, the Gore-Tex, the expanded EPTFE membrane. The results were good, but the problem was that on the upper part, in those areas, mucosa was exposed, membrane was exposed, and it led to infections. We don't use expanded like Gore-Tex and use a dense type EPTFE to do GBR. And at times I used open membrane technique. Recently, even when I used dense EPTFE membrane, the wound that was exposed turned out messy. So recently, I barely use non-resorbable membrane, and I normally use collagen membrane. I use resorbable membrane. The problem is that it can melt away too soon, and at times it's difficult to maintain space. In those cases, for space maintenance, I use titanium plate if necessary. I'm going to talk about OsBuilder and other titanium mesh type. So the OsBuilder made by Ostem is 3D type, and it has the advantages of non-resorbable membrane. So normally I use resorbable membrane. I showed you briefly during hands-on the Osmem Hard. So at Ostem, collagen membrane was made more dense, so more closer to non-resorbable membrane, it can be maintained more easily, and you can handle it more easily, so it will be released soon. I hope it will be a lot of help for you. Third question is, when you do block bone graft, sometimes people use lag screw. What do you think about that? The bone screw I showed you is a positioning screw. The leg screw, so there's no screw on top, so at times the block bone, it can help in compressing it. But as I've shown you, when you get block bone from Ramus, this is very hard. Therefore, if you compress it using leg screw, the block bone can fracture very frequently. So it can be quite difficult. If you use position screw in the type of lag screw, you can make a bigger hole to fixate it. Position screw can also give you the effect of the leg screw. Recently, I don't really use lag screw. I use positioning screw to do block bone graft. The tendency is to do block bone graft less. I hope that answered your question. So when you do GBR in general, you use bone tack and bone screw to fixate the membrane. You use bone screw to fixate the block bone as well. As you do GBR in the future, I hope you'll be able to do GBR more successfully using bone tack and bone screw and get good clinical results. I hope this helped for your clinical experience. Thank you for watching.